This meeting is being recorded. I'd like to call to order the Willington Inland Wetland and Watercourses Commission today, December 18th, 2023. The time is now 7:30. Call to order. All members are present. There's no seeing of alternates. Next order is applications to be received. There are none. Is that correct, Mike?
Correct, yep.
Next order of business is approval of the October 2nd, 2023 minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at those?
I have not.
So you weren't present at that meeting, Mark?
That's correct. So we can proceed.
So David and Ralph, did you have any comments regarding the minutes? The meeting minutes? They're pretty well captured.
Yeah. So I'll move approval of the minutes of October 2nd, 2023.
Ralph, did you have any other input or further discussion?
I do not.
Would you like to second that motion?
I can do that. Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 There is no public hearing tonight, so we move on to next business. Timber harvest application TH23-7, selective timber harvest 0 Tolland Turnpike, map block 21022-00, owner Williford Farms LLC, applicant A. Harmon on behalf of Hull Forest Products. Is there anyone here to speak to this application?
Yes, Mike Bartlett here, forester with Hull Forest Products as well. Boston had another conflict with another town's Wetland meeting tonight as well. So I told him I would fill in for him on this one. So would you like me to review what we're proposing?
Mike, can you pull up a map of the proposed? I wasn't able to pull up any of the attachments in those documents that were in the Google Docs. So if we can just get an overview of what they provided, please.
Give me 1 second.
And the applicant can speak to the project. Now, my first question here is, it's right on the border of Ashford. So was there any notification to the Ashford Wetlands Commission on this one, Mike?
I'm not sure if they have been notified or not at this point. I don't think so, but I'm not sure on that.
Is
Are any
that
wetlands involved in Ashford?
No. Actually, yes, I guess there is. Yeah, in the lower right corner, it looks like there is one stream crossing proposed there that was used in the past harvest. Yes.
Yeah, based on my research, there's 18 acres in Ashford.
Right, yeah.
And access to portion of the Willington parcels will have to be through Ashford.
Correct. That
Southerly most
parcel.
parcel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can everybody see the map?
Yes.
so? With that being said, how do we proceed from here since some of this activities in the town of Ashford?
So you, even though it's under the same ownership, you're looking at the activity that's within Willington. So that's what you're focusing on. That's what they're in front of you for. They have ownership over the parcel, that the portion that's in Ashford. So from an access standpoint, they're okay. But activity, if they're actually going to be doing harvest or anything along those lines, that's an Ashford thing, and we're only focused on the portion that's within Willington.
Okay. Is there anything in, just looking back through our regulations, if there's, yeah, anything within 500 feet of the boundary of the town of Ashford, they must give notice.
Yeah, we
Those folks?
did a notice to the wetland agent.
Okay. All right, the applicant can speak to the map in the application if you would, please.
All right, the timber harvest areas are the bulk of the property, except the areas that are cross-hatched out, so to speak, where there'd be no harvesting done there. The vast majority of it is the same area that was harvested 10 years ago. The only spot that would not be that would be the southernmost portion. Apparently that part of the property was not harvested the last time, so there's a small area down in the very southern portion in Willington that was not treated the last time that we would like to treat at this point. Our crossings would be in places that were used the last time, with the exception of that one. We plan on using portable timber mats to protect the integrity of those wetland features. Planning on maintaining a 15-foot no harvest buffer from the streams, and then less than 50% canopy cover removed in the 15 to 30 feet past that buffer area. The harvest plan is to harvest mainly large saw timber, 20 to 22 inches, as well as any other trees that are unhealthy or diseased along that nature. It's an effort to release the regeneration that became established the last time, as well as establish additional regeneration there. The landing areas would be the same ones that were used in the last harvest 10 years ago. Those are the red spots at the top of the property to the north and near the southern portion of the property as well there. So plan to use a harvester and a forwarder. I think the last time, I don't think the loggers had a harvester at that time. The loggers that did, I think they were hand felling, but they used a forwarder to bring the material out. So we plan on, if needed, the approaches to those crossings with the portable timber mats. We would corduroy any of the approaches that needed stabilization as well. There is proposal to do some harvesting in the conservation easement area. That's the tan upper portion of the western part of the property that's kind of highlighted with the tan background. And planning on removing 30 to 40% of the basal area in that effort, and favoring shade tolerant species, as this area can only be thinned and never do what's known as an overstory removal, which is necessary for species like oak, highly intolerant species. So there's one vernal pool in the conservation area, easement area. A 50-foot buffer will be retained around that vernal pool area. That's the small feature right on the very western boundary there that shows crosshatch. That's actually a large vernal pool there. So, let's see.
Can you speak to the access roads? I see you have something coming off of Meadow Lane and then from Collin Turnpike itself.
Yeah.
Looks like this one's going off property. Do these have to be built roads or are they already existing?
No, those are existing roads. Those are existing access roads.
Yeah, this wasn't harvested that long ago.
10
Because
years ago.
Yeah, I remember this parcel. Mike, do you have any information on the last time it was harvested? As far as any kind of Mike D'Amato, as far as any stipulations to the project or anything that we could be aware of?
So, I'm not sure that I have access to be able to check to see what specific stipulations, if any. One of the things that was reviewed the last time and is sort of, this is the first step in the process, was related to the conservation easement. So they came to you guys, they went to planning and zoning, and then they went ultimately to the Board of Selectmen. So as part of that, they've already met with and done a walk on the property with the Conservation Commission. And so there was a letter that Kathy Demers wrote, which was submitted as part of the application, which talks about their review of that. But I can look quickly to see if we have anything else.
Patrick, did you read the letter from Conservation Commission?
Have I?
Yes.
No.
Okay, it was part of the package that we got. Two things. One was a restriction on the conservation easement with respect to that required written application to permit pruning and thinning of live trees and brush on the premises. And then there's another comment in there as far as utilizing that southern access to Meadow Lane. That goes across town property, and what the Conservation Commission mentioned is that they will need to get Board of Selectmen approval for a temporary right-of-way to access Meadow Lane. I have a little bit of concern about how much hauling will be done out through Meadow Lane versus directly to Route 74, just given the roads in the area. If we're using a straight truck, I suppose it's fine. If we're going to be using a semi with a log trailer, I have misgivings about using that point of access.
The trucking would all be done with a straight triaxle log truck, not a semi trailer.
Okay, that makes it a little bit easier. The roads are still narrow, but
yeah, so I understand. Yeah. Looking at it, from the map, I would say, it looks to me like maybe 25% of the volume might want to come out that way to the south or less. I would think, skid distance wise, it would not be unreasonable for, 2/3 of it to go out to the north.
well, you're not skidding it all to the landing, are you? You said you were using a forwarder.
No, I mean, we're planning on using a forwarder. I call it skidding, but planning on using a forwarder for all of the removal of the logs from the wood to the landing area. Well, but I'm just saying distance wise there, it looks to me like, the bottom, basically from the crosshatch area that's not being cut there to the east and south might be practical to bring that to that southern landing. And I would think the rest of it certainly could go to the north, distance wise, that seems reasonable from what I'm looking at here.
Do you plan on doing- Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I did find the permit that was previously issued. It looks like, other than the standard conditions, it looks like they had a few sort of more comments than conditions for all of them. But one of them was in the area where equipment is to be used, the stream crossing will be stabilized. Hay bales to be placed in the Kidder Brook area. During construction, the commission is being notified of the start of work, which is standard. Work to be done in the conservation easement during driest time of year. maximize the day to reduce amount of ins and outs, and stabilization at completion of logging.
Well, I can understand that. That was a vernal pool area. That's a highly active time when things are moving in and out of there.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth noting that that permit was approved in May, so a different time of year. So they're probably thinking through a different upcoming season.
The applicant did state that they're looking to harvest in spring and summer of next year, which is prime breeding for those fauna. Well, you are going to give the buffer. Sounds like you were doing that in accordance with the forestry regulations. Were you planning on harvesting anything in wetlands at all with this harvest?
I do not think so. I don't know. I haven't been on the site, so I'm not positive if there's any trees marked in any wetlands at all. I don't know for sure. I don't think so, but I don't know for sure. Talks about in the buffers along the streams, but doesn't talk about any harvesting in wetlands.
Can we pull that map up again, Mike?
Sure.
So it sounds like from what Ralph was saying, they need some sort of approval from the town to get through Meadow Lane through that access. Is that correct?
Right, so if the next step will be to go to planning and zoning, because they were the ones that ultimately, as part of the subdivision approval, approved the conservation easement. So the language of the easement basically says that the planning commission may allow the activity. So they'll go before P and Z just to basically have that conversation. And then they will need to go to the Board of Selectmen to just go over the terms of that temporary access, which is that's the same sequence they followed when they did this previously.
Okay. So this harvest area to the southwest, where it's all hatched out and you got a green road coming through there before it wise, just north of the landing. Was that previously harvested? Is that why you're not looking to harvest there?
I think that's an old field area.
That is a field. I'm looking at the aerial.
Yeah, that area there, I believe that's an old field.
Yes.
That's a wetland feature there.
Same with the no harvest on the north end.
Okay. That's an intermittent stream. Okay. So there's no skid roads or anything proposed to go through wetland areas or harvest in wetlands as you're presenting in this application.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion from the commissioners?
I will,
Question, the harvest 10 years ago, assuming that that was fairly complete, if the criteria are the same, how much has now qualified again for harvesting? Is this a major harvest or is this a very selective harvest?
It's selective in that it's the largest of what's out there at this time, and focusing on that, leaving basically trees, good quality trees, 18 inches and smaller is going to be the residual stand. So it's focused primarily on the very larger saw timber that's out there at this point.
assuming that the dead ash and dead oaks come out as well.
Yes, that's our plan. If they're usable, we would taking those out as well at this point. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask one question, and it has to do with oh, why am I drawing a blank? Asian bittersweet, autumn olive, things of that sort, are nemesis as far as the fringes of open areas subject to sunlight that get good sun. I have noticed a tremendous increase in Asian bittersweet in areas where they're on the periphery of an open area. Dense forest, they don't tend to invade very much there, but certainly autumn olive will take over fields and open space. Asian bittersweet loves the perimeter of those kinds of areas. Have you had any conversations with the owner of the property about possible mitigation issues? I'm not looking to make that a requirement. It's just that I think property owners need to be aware of how quickly those species can flourish under certain conditions, and what a nightmare it is to get rid of them. I'm dealing with it on my measly 4 acres, and it's a challenge.
Yeah, it certainly is. I agree with you completely. I do not know if Austin has discussed that with the owner. As I said, I'm filling in for him tonight,
I
and
understand.
I can't answer as to whether he has discussed that, but I'd be glad to bring that up with him. So,
But I think those invasives inhibit future harvests.
oh yeah, they certainly do. Yeah.
And if you're looking at a long-term forestry management plan, those species, I think, have to be addressed. Otherwise, you're not going to have any appreciable future harvests, because nothing is going to grow up through the shade provided by an area covered by Asian bittersweet.
Right. Yeah.
Other than a totally shade tolerant species.
Oh.
Anyway, that's just a soapbox issue for me.
Is there any further discussion from the commissioners? Would anyone like to make a motion on this application?
I'd be happy to make a motion if someone would provide the wording. Make sure the wording is correct.
Well, I think what we're looking at here, guys, is a timber harvest on property, which is a agricultural practice. The applicant stated that he is going to, they plan on, in according with the town regulations around streams, we have a 15-foot buffer landward from streams where there's no harvest. And then from the 15 to 30 foot, he stated that they're going to do a 50% canopy removal, which is in our regulations. And Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bartlett, that you also stated that you're going to provide the buffer around the vernal pool
Correct. Yes.
and the wetland areas in accordance with the regulations, even though you're allowed to harvest in wetlands, but you said you're going to be staying out of those. And for the stream and wetland crossings, you're going to be using temporary matting.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So I think we're going to make a motion to approve timber harvest TH 23-7. And the applicant does state that they're going to use the Connecticut DEP forestry best management practices for water quality while harvesting products, forest products. So that's a good thing. We like to see that.
We also would plan on stabilization afterwards in terms of seeding and mulching at the crossings and seeding of the trails when it's appropriate to weather conditions.
Yeah, and how's the terrain there? Do you guys have to put in some water bars or anything like that for your roads? Or
Yeah, I mean, they're probably going to need some water bars and put in place once we're, probably during the operation as well, if need be.
Yeah, and that's all part of the BMPs. I didn't see any critical habitat in that area, so doesn't mean there's any state listed species right now. But so I believe that's the motion to approve.
Well, and what about timing? I mean, if we could push this towards the end of the summer or the driest part, because there are a lot of wetlands in that area. There's a lot of crossings, so if we could reduce activity during those times. I don't know what your schedule is, Michael.
Can we regulate timing, Mike D'Amato?
I think if
Or
there's
make a suggestion at least.
if there's a nexus between why, I think, yeah, you can just encourage that to happen, during those times of year. I don't think we can prohibit it, but you can certainly
Right.
encourage.
So, Mr. Barlow, would you like to speak to that at all?
Sure.
Just to educate us
I'm
further.
not sure how things will play out, whether there's an opportunity to do some of this before spring conditions. I understand, the concerns regarding breeding season. And then I guess, I don't have any problem working around that. Weather-wise, who knows what next summer is going to bring. Hopefully it's not as wet.
Right.
We had a wetter August and September than we did May. So,
Look at the past 2 weeks.
Anyway, yeah, I know. It's glad it's not snow. Let's put it that way. But it's certainly made it challenging, a very challenging year for harvesting timber. But I understand your concerns, and we'd be certainly willing to try to work around those concerns, in terms of a timing of the harvest. So.
Okay, and I do believe the
Thank you.
applicant does need to notify the office prior to the activity, correct?
Yeah.
Well, I would think we also need to include the conversation with planning and zoning as well as the Board of Selectmen before any work starts.
Can I read to you what I've got included as special conditions, and you can tell me if this captures the discussion? So buffers shall be maintained from all water courses as required by these regulations. Subsequent approval from planning and zoning will be required for any harvesting within the conservation easement. Subsequent approval from the Board of Selectmen will be required prior to access via Meadow Lane. This approval is applicable to the portion of the property contained within Willington. Connecticut Deep Forestry best management practices shall be followed. Stabilization shall be completed following completion of the harvest. And I was in the middle of typing the last one. Oh, activity. I was going to make a note of the drier part of the year. It's sort of an alignment with the previous approval.
Mhm.
I mean, it's duration of the project. What do you think? 2 months?
Yeah, I think you're probably looking along those lines. Yeah.
I think it's also worth noting that a portion of this property does exist in Ashford and that this approval applies specifically to the property in Willington. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, I had that in there. That's number 4.
Okay, as long as it's in there.
Yep.
I'd like to add the exceptions supplied by the Conservation Commission for the conservation area would be adhered to. And I believe these are negotiated.
What's happening?
You got all that, Mike?
Yep.
All right, so that's the motion on the floor. Guess we would need someone to second it.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Abstentions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That brings us to the next point of order. This is the inland wetlands application 23-12, request for jurisdictional ruling associated with a selective timber harvest with wetland disturbance at 0 Talon Turnpike, map block 21022-00, owner Williford Farms LLC, applicant A. Harmon Whole Forest Products. So in this application, the applicant states that there's going to be approximately over 70,000 square feet of wetland affected. But previously in the timber harvest application, not that that isn't allowed, there was no mention of that or anything to say that you were going to be harvesting within wetlands. Would the applicant like to speak to that?
Well, that's news to me. Let's put it that way. No.
70,000 square feet, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a little over an acre and a half. Well, you know.
So, commissioners, this isn't as of right activity in the timber harvest application. They did say they would do stabilization. There is something in our regulations. So I think it's 3.4A. All right, okay, the application, and then there's so there's supposed to be like some alternative routes and stuff, but the applicant already stated that they weren't going to be harvesting in the wetlands. That's why I brought the question up in the timber harvest application, but the applicant stated that they weren't going to be harvesting in wetlands. So I'm not sure where the 70,000 square feet comes from.
Right. Well, the not harvesting in wetlands was my take on it because I hadn't been informed that there was any plan. So, I
So what do we do
That
in
as
this
well.
situation,
yeah.
Mike D'Amato? So if there's wetland disturbance, do they have to restore that, or they just leave it in kind, or?
So I think that, you know, if you're looking at the narrative as part of what they submitted, it says, the timber harvest will require one existing and previously used stream crossing, which will be crossed using temporary timber bridge mats. Corduroy may be as well be installed on both approaches of this to crossing to maintain soil stability and reduce erosion and sedimentation into the stream. All skid trails, including stream crossing and other bare mineral soil exposed areas, will be seeded and hayed as needed post-harvest during the next feasible time, seed and hay growing seasons, etc. Water bars may be implemented on skid trails as necessary post-harvest. We will retain a 50-foot buffer from the edges of vernal pools and a 25 to 30-foot buffer in the edges of the stream and wetlands within the conservation easement. No trees will be cut within these buffers, but slash and woody debris may be left. So I think that from what I can see here, if I had to guess, Austin's calculation includes activity within the upland review area.
Okay.
Because if you look at his map, you know, from where those haul roads and things are, they're not within those wetland areas, but they would most likely be within the upland review. And if you factor in you know, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wetland crossings. That
He's
I mean,
including that as disturbance.
right.
Well,
So
yeah, they're talking about the prefabricated structures, you know, removal of vegetation and grading. So they're just going to try to improve the skid trails. It's not like they're harvesting in the wetland areas.
right,
That's
that
the
was
thing,
my understanding.
I can't open these attachments. They keep giving me a file error. So
Yeah, I think it's because everything is down at town hall.
I gotcha.
But I sent links in the email. I can send them out again. Hold on. Or I can just put it in the chat. It's been a bit of a chaotic day trying to figure all this stuff out.
Oh, I'm sure.
We are nothing without internet anymore. Oh, let me see here. IW23-12. All right, so I'm gonna put this into the chat just in case.
I just wanted to make sure because in the timber harvest application there was no wetland impact, and then we come to this and it's showing wetland disturbance.
Yeah, but it's really, if you look at the check boxes when it comes up, it makes sense that they're just going to improve some of the roads, remove some brush, and do the bridging. So
Okay.
they're not actually working in the wetlands. They're just stabilizing the area, you know, improving their access.
Okay.
I just want to look at the reporting form. See if there's anything on there. boundaries. Doesn't have the total, the state form doesn't capture that. I thought that it did.
Well, I'm good on this based on the information provided in the timber harvest application. It just caught my eye.
It looks like, based on the reporting form, that they're showing there will only be one new wetland crossing. That all the existing skid trails will be utilized otherwise.
Yeah, that's what their narrative says, I believe. Timber harvest will require one existing and previously used stream crossing, which will be crossed using timber bridgements. Well, it's not saying new though, that's saying existing.
And that's probably the one that's in the southernmost portion that was not harvested before.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one that hasn't been used, is that southernmost one, yeah.
Well, everything is going down. Can't open up any more files right now.
Did you get the link I put in the chat?
Yeah, everything, I mean, through the Google Docs, through the cloud is all jammed up.
If you click on that link and it brings up the application, and then you click the sort of on the top there, you'll see files with a number 4. You should be able to.
Okay,
those
I
links.
got it. Yeah, I got everything now.
That works on my end at least.
Okay, so I think that clarifies some things. So the request was for a jurisdictional ruling as an as of right activity, which I believe this is. Is there any further discussion from commission members about that?
Now, this is something that I need to understand better, how this jurisdictional ruling should be addressed by a motion. So I'm hesitant to make a motion to that effect, but.
So an as of right activity, if we pull up the regulations,
I understand the as of right. I just don't understand the phrase jurisdictional ruling and how that applies.
So this jurisdictional ruling, if Mike D'Amato, correct me if I'm wrong, since we're the regulatory body, they're looking for our ruling that the proposed activity of a forestry practice harvest is an as of right by the property owner, even if it's in a wetland area. And
Right. So
because of our wetland and forestry regulations, that's why they have to come to us for this ruling, for us to give them the blessing.
right. So as far as the state is concerned, the conversation that's happening now is the applicant is coming to you so that he can present his activity, and you will, in review of that activity, confirm a lack of jurisdiction, because the forest practices on the wetland side are non-jurisdictional for a wetlands commission. So you're issuing a ruling, basically a lack of jurisdiction. It's one of the as of right activities, but it's a little bit different, because when you issue an as of right activity, or a lot of people think it's a permit, and it's not a permit. When you make a finding that something is by right, you're basically saying we rescind our ability to have oversight, and you rescind your ability to have future oversight. So the jurisdictional ruling is just a little bit more clear, but there's not a huge difference between the two terms.
Does that make sense, Ralph?
I gotta wrap my head around it. No, not yet. I'll be okay. I don't have a problem with this. I just don't understand this wording, that's all.
I'd like to make a motion to approve inland wetland application IW 23-12 for timber harvest at 0 Talon Turnpike at block 21-022-00 as of right activity.
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? Abstentions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Well, thank you, Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, thank you.
Happy New Year.
folks. Yes, happy holidays to all.
Next order of business is old business. We have no old business going on right now. Do we, Mike?
No, not other than what's under staff report and discussion.
Okay. Oh, and old business. Any contact with the property owner on Depot Road? And the activities
Yeah.
that were going on down there?
We talked to her. I went out and tried to see what I could from the road. It was way far back, but she actually did send some photos, and so I followed up and I was asking for some clarification and trying to sort of have a conversation with her, and I think she saw the writing on the wall and has since gone radio silent. So we're moving to snail mail, since email has is no longer have any luck with that. She lives quite far away, so she's not obviously really here, and we've gotten some complaints from people in the area because they've been using that property for hunting. But other than that, I don't think they're really on the property. But yeah, so we have to follow up with her in writing because she's stopped responding to our emails and calls.
Yeah, it appears that there's possibly a structure out there in the wetland, and yeah, I think a lot of firearm activity going on out there. But I mean, they're right, but I mean, there's a structure, and that's right in a wetland. They cleared a road through wetland. There's wetland disturbance there, and they didn't put their parking area where we permitted it to be.
Yeah, I think
does this have to go to an enforcement or cease and
it
desist,
could.
or?
It could. I'm hoping that now with the leaves off, we'll have a better opportunity to actually see some stuff. I don't know if there'd be any. It would be easier to view from the Talon side, but yeah, we will follow up with her, and if we have to actually issue some type of an enforcement order, then so be it.
That upstream or downstream from the bridge?
It's upstream.
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 So it's
Yeah,
across. Isn't there a Talon Park in there? On the
right before you hit the abutment going into Talland, if you look down, they have a chain going across their dirt road, and usually there's a guy in a truck there. He was getting out with a high-powered rifle the other day, but if you look down, you can see they cleared a road down. There's rutting through the wetland. They have a structure out there, targets set up, which you can shoot on your land, but they have a structure there. So what was permitted was a parking area next to the rail yard, and we specifically put in our permit no clearing of wetland vegetation. So obviously they're in
Violation.
violation of what we permitted.
Do you say upstream, this is north of Depot Road? Just to be clear.
Yes.
Yes.
Is this structure more of a hunting blind rather than a real structure?
It kind of seems like that's what it might be. I was a little bit unsure about that. It sort of looked like that's what it might be. They don't have anything else there. I'm not sure what else the structure would be unless they're actually trying to lock up belongings. So it could be a blind.
Okay, next order of business, correspondence, Roaring Brook Water Quality Report. From our
So that came in, it's one
Fussin'
of
O'Neill,
the,
right?
what was that?
From Fussin' O'Neill.
Yes, so that was one of the technical memorandums that was required as part of the Love's approval. So I know that the accessing the document is probably didn't happen. So if the information online, if that report is not proving to be something you can access, I can email it to you. I haven't had a chance to really go through the results to kind of determine what the over under is, but I can send it along to folks just so that they can see and read it and take a look. And if you have any questions, you let me know and we can kind of go from there. It's only 5 pages, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, I took a look through this earlier today, and the gist of it is that they need more data to evaluate potential post-construction impacts to Roaring Brook, if any at all. So would that mean they're going to provide us with ongoing monitoring? What's the duration for that?
I do think that their monitoring is ongoing. I think this was just one of the required, I don't even know what interval this one was because we've gotten so many different ones.
Okay.
So yeah, this isn't like the final report sort of symbolizing termination of their testing.
Okay. Yeah, everything I read was that more sampling was needed to gather more data and correlate that. Do we have to accept this into the record, or can we move on?
It's just for correspondence, so no action required.
Okay. Next item is staff report and discussion. So I guess we need to look at our 2024 meeting dates.
I can put them up if you want.
Okay.
Fourth Monday.
Yep.
Did we check to see if any of those are going to be holidays at all?
Yes, we did check that.
It's interesting. The three of them are on the earliest day it could possibly be. Just about. Yeah.
Well, like the 22nd to 20th?
Yeah. The 22nd. Yeah.
Wow.
20th. Why is the 20th?
Well, that means it's
can't
gonna
be
be
a
a-
fourth. Oh, that's because the following Monday is the Memorial Day.
Yeah, that one I think got moved up.
That's going to be another early Thanksgiving. Okay, so we have to make a motion to approve the meetings? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 meeting dates as presented.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Hopefully we're all here. Next is the election of officers. So tell us a little bit about that, Mike.
On paper, you need to have somebody to run the meeting. So you don't have bylaws which say how long terms are, that you're gonna have chair, vice chair, secretary, you don't. So I think it probably at this point would be best to just have at least a chair, somebody that can make certain, if there's any meeting decisions that come up, that we would reach out to and obviously to run the meeting. So we would just need somebody to make a motion for someone to be chair.
Can we have two co-chairs?
Yeah, yep. I mean, this commission has always had that, so functionally, that's not a problem.
I would nominate the two senior members of the commission.
No.
I would second that.
Come on, Mark. You've been waiting for this day all your life.
Yes, yeah, you have no idea. This is what I've dreamed of.
Wait, you haven't woken up yet.
Yeah, some nightmares you just don't feel like you will.
Dream or a nightmare, Mark?
Yeah.
I'm not prepared, so I'm certainly not
Well,
gonna
you're
volunteer.
as prepared as I am, Ralph. You do fine.
I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so now we move on to the review of the forestry regulations. Not much that you had together here, Mike. So you want to walk us through this real quick?
Sure. And I can pull it up. Share my screen. So we've talked about this a couple of times, and actually even with Nick Zito.
Yeah, that came up in the last meeting in the minutes. So
Yeah. So let me share this so you can see it. These are basically amendments, a proposed sort of first crack at amendments to reflect some of those discussions. So basically, you'll see what I'm proposing to remove is struck out, and the red is proposed to be added. So the first section comes from 5.3, which is application form, and our current reg says applications not containing the information listed in 5.3 may be denied by the commission. However, the commission may waive one or more of the foregoing requirements for good cause. So that's kind of old language, and I wanted to kind of clarify, and so I'm proposing to remove that because I don't know if it fits in exactly where it was. It was kind of just sitting there, not numbered. And I'm proposing to kind of take that on as section 510, which would be incomplete applications, waiver of application requirements. And it would then say applications which do not contain the information required by 5.3 or deemed necessary by the commission may be denied. However, the commission shall not be prohibited from acting upon any application for lack of information. The commission may waive any submitted requirement if the commission determines such information is not necessary to review the application and determine compliance with these regulations. So this is just meant to more comprehensively cover if the regs don't specifically say they need something, like for example, in this case, the application we just saw, there's a conservation easement on the property. They're proposing to harvest within the easement. If they didn't provide a copy of the easement, you're saying we need the copy of the easement. They're saying, well, it's not in the application materials. The idea is if you deem something to be necessary and it's not provided, it can be denied. On the flip side of that, if there's something that's clearly not necessary, even if it's in the regulation or someone has asked a question about it, if it's clearly not necessary for you to make that decision, then you're not prohibited from acting without it. This language is pretty consistent across lots of towns have this on, whether it be subdivision, inland wetland, planning and zoning. So that just kind of seeks to clarify that and not box you guys into a corner. The 5.6, notice to abutting landowners. So this would be modified to remove the certified mail because the statute is actually certificate of mail, which is a little bit different. It requires that they demonstrate that they sent them, but it doesn't do return receipt because that's historically not something we ever get anyways. And it's like a couple of bucks a letter instead of $7 or $8 a letter. And then it says that the proof of mailing is required prior to the issuance of a decision by the commission. And this has been modified to then say, such notice shall include the following. So they are going to be required within 7 days of filing the application to demonstrate proof that they have done the following and that the notice that they have sent includes 1, the name, address, and contact information of the landowner or applicant. 2, a copy of the site map filed with the application, indicating the proposed operating area and all proposed landings and access points. C, a statement that an application has been filed with the commission pursuant to the forest practices regulations of the Willington Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission, seeking authorization to conduct a forest practice with the expected time frame for commencement, completion, and total duration of the activity. So I thought a lot about this based upon our previous discussions, and we don't necessarily know based upon when they submit, when they're going to get started. The weather may change that even if they think they know when it's going to get started. And, you know, there's no real way for us to monitor that once that permit has gone out the door. So if we send information as far as who's doing the work, who owns the property, where they're going to be performing the work on the property, where the access points are, so basically where trucks are coming and going, when it's expected to begin, how long it's expected to last, those seem to be the things people care most about. So that was my thought in including these as what the letter should contain.
Yeah, those are all things that Mike Zito talked about, and you know, I think the spirit of that was that like people aren't taken off guard, like, oh my God, there's all hell breaking loose out here, and they're coming down all the forest. So, and also, I mean, these guys have to notify you of when they're going to be starting the harvest anyway. So if an abutter, adjacent landowner calls you and says, hey, you know, I haven't seen them, or, you know, what's going on? You say, you know, they anticipate such and such a date or time frame.
Yes, yeah, they let us know when they're getting started, or like in the case of the one we did with Rick Zulik not too long ago, he said, hey, we're not starting, but machines are going to be showing up there pretty soon. So if anybody calls, so they usually let us know so we can let the abutters know when they call.
Yeah, if they call. So are we looking to vote on this, or do we have to clean this up a little bit and get it into some format to Mike, or?
So, if you want to think about it, or you think you might want to propose significant changes, then we can hold. If you think it's the best thing you've ever read, the next step would be to sort of plan to schedule this for a subsequent meeting for public hearing. So we would have to refer to Deep and give them 35 days for comment. We've had some challenges in the past with getting them to comment within 35 days, and it kind of seems silly to, you just have to refer it. You don't have to wait for comment. The problem is we don't want to move after the 35 days and then have them give you comment 45 or
Right.
55 days
Mhm.
later. So my thought would be that we would send this over to Deep, let them know that we've planned to have a public hearing. And I don't know, we could even say for something like March or February, and then that gives them a long runway to comment, and then we can schedule it for that meeting if, but it's whatever you guys are comfortable with.
You know, one thing that we've been dealing with in our permitting is that, properties change hands all the time. So we've been looking at like the abutting property. You're notifying the property, not like a person, but you're notifying the owner of that property. So whoever that may be, assessor stuff changes all the time, or it's not updated a lot. So that's one thing we've been kicking around when we're sending out abutter notices, is that we're notifying the property, the abutting property, and the owner thereof. What do you think?
Yeah, this goes, I mean, the way that it's set up now, it says notice to abutting landowners.
Yeah.
We did have that one, I forget which was Blas Road, I can't even remember now, where the owner, between when they got notified and when the harvest began, the property changed hands. And so the person who was living in the house when the timber harvest began was not the person that owned it when the application came before the commission. Not sure there's much we can do with that.
No, I'm
But-
just saying, like, it's just that concept of you're notifying the abutting kind of property, the owner of the abutting property. It doesn't need to be a specific person. You know what I'm saying?
So you want you're thinking the letter could be dear property owner instead of dear John Smith?
That's what we've kind of been doing, but it doesn't need to be that way. It was just kind of like a hypothetical kind of thought. Am I losing everybody?
No, I was just thinking about a dear property owner. I think that's dangerous because it can be perceived as junk mail, even if it's got Town of Willington as return address in it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's coming from the applicant himself, so.
And well, yeah, that makes it a little bit different, but even still, I get an occasional postcard or letter from realtors about, you want to sell your house.
Right.
I get quite a few of those every year, and they're generic inquiries actually, but they usually go in the recycled bin.
I gotcha.
But the question of interest is somebody doing a title search for a change of hands in a property. Would any of this information be available for that kind of a title search as an abutting permission? I don't think so.
Do you mean notice of a pending harvest going into the land records so that a title search would uncover it, Dave? Is that what you mean?
That's what I kind of thought of.
I don't, it depends how diligent they are, I guess, in doing a title search, because they're usually just going to go through the land records and not necessarily go through land use department.
On the property cards.
Apparently we cannot count on anything along that line.
Yeah, I mean, the tricky part with with any type of wetland application or timber harvest is that it's a permit for something that an applicant may do, but not something they will do or shall do. So we see stuff all the time where they get partway through or all the way through a process and then they never actually do it. And so it's hard to notice something because the permits could be good for 5 years and they may never actually execute them. It's just, one of those things where yeah, there are certain circumstances where people find out about it when the trucks show up. But if they give us a heads up, at least if they call, we let them know. But it is hard to make people aware of these things ahead of time, particularly when some of these parcels are hundreds of acres.
Okay, so what does the commission think? Do we want to mull this around or get the ball rolling to get it amended?
I personally think that the process should start and get it to public hearing. I assume at that point, if any issues come up, that we always have the opportunity to modify.
Well, this is going to go to deep first, correct? So we've got to wait on them.
I sent it to Nick informally and just said, we're going to be considering this. If you have any comments, I know it's short notice, but if based upon statute, I think we could get it on for the February meeting, probably not enough time for the January meeting. So you could modify, as long as it wasn't significant changes or changes to sections that weren't contemplated, you could modify further during the hearing.
I mean, this is so de minimis here anyway, so. I think we should get the ball rolling on it. If we're going to do this, then all this makes sense to me now. Do we have to vote on this?
Make a motion to accept the changes as presented.
I would second that. Is there any further discussion between the commission members?
Can you tell me when you would want to schedule a hearing as part of that?
I don't know. What do you think? By March? Or are we statutorily held to a deadline or a certain time frame?
Commission applications are not required to meet the statutory timeframes. So you could say we'd like to schedule it for March or February, whatever you prefer.
I
What do you
March
think is reasonable, Mike?
I think that between now and the first week of January, I could send it to the state tomorrow and, until January 2nd or 3rd or whatever it is, probably not going to matter. And we've got I wanted Nick's comments ahead of time because if he was like, oh, I hate this, I wanted to know up front, but he has to run it through his, all his people. So I would say February is probably the soonest we would be able to do it and assume we might get any comments from them.
So you want to push it to March then? That seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, it does.
Yep.
March is fine.
Okay. Okay, we'll do the referrals.
Okay, so we're moving on to comments. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak, we see someone from the town of Willington here.
Hi, this is Kathy Demers, 48 Mason Road.
Hi, Kathy. How are you tonight? Good to see you.
Good to see y'all. I'm speaking on behalf of Conservation Commission. Just wanted to let folks know that I had recently gone to a program at our North Central Conservation District and learned a little bit more about what kind of services they can provide to municipal land use commissions. Some of the things they can provide are technical services, to municipalities, including site visits, site plan reviews, and other on-site investigations. They specialize in soil erosion and sediment control plan review. And so they can assist municipalities with things like water quality, wetland and stormwater issues, as well as things that are related to environmental impacts. I'm not sure that we've taken advantage of this resource in the past, but it's a tool that Planning and Zoning, Inland Wetlands, and the Conservation Commission can use. If something comes up for review, we can send the information about the application to the Conservation District, and they can help, you know, with some of the review, some of the questions we might have. We often don't have a resource on our side. We're depending on the applicant often to provide us with information about the application. So just wanted to let you know that that's a resource.
So it sounds like it's more of like a third-party review on behalf of the town.
Right. So it's something we could, you know, if an application comes in for a development project and we have some concerns about, you know, wetland areas or soil erosion, water quality issues, we can send them the information and they would help with some of the review on our side and send back some feedback. I know in the past that we may have gone to something called the Environmental Review Team, but they don't seem to be very active anymore. But I wasn't aware that our local conservation district, which is, our office is out of Vernon. We're one of 30 towns basically in north central Connecticut that they service. So this is a nice resource to know about. I don't know what the turnaround time would be. Mike, I don't know if you've had any experience using them with other towns, but.
I reached out to them for Loves to see if they would be willing to be a part of that application process, and they said no.
Oh.
They were uncomfortable, I guess, or maybe they didn't have the bandwidth. But before because we hired Ed Pollock, and that was fairly expensive for the applicant, so I wanted to make sure we were not skipping a step, because we pay into the sort of that annual, I'm forgetting what it is, with North Central.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time they declined to be involved, but we have reached out.
Great. Yeah.
That was a big project, kind of an anomaly so that may have been something that was a little bit beyond what they wanted to jump into.
Mhm.
Sure. You know, or something even like as large as like the warehouse project. Those might be, you know, pretty overwhelming.
Beyond their scope.
Yeah. But it's good to know, just for the future, we can always ask, you know, any of the municipal land use commissions can ask. So, well, thank you all, and
Mhm.
thanks for all your work, and have a wonderful holiday season.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Kathy.
Kathy.
You too.
Okay. There's an Evelyn Delaney. Would you like to speak? Are you here to speak at all?
And it's the assistant land use agent. Hi.
Oh,
Hi.
hi. This is the second time I've done that. I'm sorry. I'll get it right one of these days.
Well, at least we got to hear your voice, Evan.
Yes, this time I got to talk.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Well, if there's no one else here to speak or no other further correspondence, there's only one last thing to do. Mark's favorite part of
Oh,
the
no, have
day.
at it. Have at it.
Well, let me ask a question first, because I want to know from moving forward, especially as we get into January, February. Do you guys prefer a virtual only meeting? Because we've done most of these virtual, and so just as far as meeting format, it's obviously easier to coordinate. So I don't want to schedule these as hybrid if everybody would prefer to be virtual. You don't have to make the decision for the whole year. You can do it meeting by meeting, but I just figured I'd get some feedback from you guys on what meeting format you prefer.
Speaking for myself, I don't care whether they're virtual or hybrid. Just that we get the information and access to the information, the meeting materials, a little bit better than the morning of. And I realized today was a little bit beyond your control, Mike, but thank you for sending that email with those documents in it, because I couldn't get to the ones that were linked from the agenda.
I personally prefer one on in-person meetings generally, because that way you get some nuances that you don't get through the Zoom. However, personally, I would not be available probably until March to do anything other than Zoom, since I've had recent surgery.
I like the convenience of the Zoom.
Mhm.
Okay, so we can schedule through to March virtual and then reevaluate when it's warmer. And I mean, we can make the decision on a meeting by meeting basis. It's just so that I know when I'm doing the agendas. Like tonight, for example, we were one of 3 meetings that were happening at Town Hall, and the common room is filled with all the gifts and things for the holiday. So it was much easier to have to do it this way. So if it doesn't bother you guys, I'll do the next couple. We'll set it up just virtual, and then as we get into March, we can see what it looks like.
Mhm.
Fair
I'm
enough.
sure it doesn't bother you at all either, Mike.
Well, it's a little different now because Town Hall closes at 6. Before it was 7:30. It was open. It was not that big a deal. But now that Town Hall closes at 6, everybody has time to close up and go home. So no
Well, I mean,
complaints on mine.
for you to drive out there and everything else, you know.
Yeah, well, I usually just stay. I don't go home in between. It's a long day either way.
Okay, I like that idea. So I think I hear a motion out there to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Second.
Any objections? Abstentions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.